Do you know what that means? That tells me that from a federal perspective, we plan on being like this. Businesses are going to be struggling until at least June 2021. Good morning, investors. Bradley here from Watson Estates. It's a very special weekend. Today is Sunday, October 11th. It is Thanksgiving weekend, and I'm so glad you guys could join us on our show today. We are the largest, fastest growing podcast for Toronto real estate on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. And you know why? Because I, as a broker and an investor, want to know what is COVID going to do to my real estate portfolio and where can I make some real money here in the GTA. Today, we got a great lineup of conversation. Number one, what does a second wave mean for Toronto real estate? We now have a clear picture. History is 2020 as it relates to the first wave, but what comes next? And would negative interest rate help or hurt our real estate market? And if you want to stick away right up to the end of the show, especially if you're a landlord or a tenant, you're not going to want to miss this. Did the Landlord Credit Bureau just single-handedly solve the landlord-tenant conflict we've been experiencing through the last year? If you're not already on our investor list, make sure you sign up for that. We're sending out great high cash flow deals, off-market distressed deals, and I never really asked for this, but why not? If you guys have any access to off-market properties, anything you want to send over to us, we can send it out to our investors. Our list has grown very quickly, and they're happy to take that property off your hands if you're thinking, you know what, this market's going down the tube. Okay, speaking of down the tube, not linked at all. That's a segue that doesn't link at all. But we have some fun here on this show. You know we do. And today's a special day because we're actually recording on YouTube. So if you're watching us, you're watching my face. Poor you. I mean, you can always turn your phone down and just by the camera, turn the camera down and listen to the audio if that's what you like. But this year, this Thanksgiving, we're putting some extra elbow grease into making turkey great. Making turkey great again. And you know me, I'm all about that based. And so I'm treating my lady to some very expensive soup this year. It actually has 24 carrots. Woo! And to make it that much more exciting, I actually went out and shot my first Thanksgiving turkey this year. Scared the hell out of everyone else in the grocery store, but it's the thought that counts. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our channel. We have lots of fun here. Staying up to date, I, as a broker and investor, want to know myself, what is the real estate market going to do? And that's what we talk about. So looking forward to a second wave, I thought this was a great place to start a conversation about what comes next. NowToronto.com's article reads, Toronto real estate market enters a second wave on a high. And if I'm going to try and kind of refresh your memory, we entered the first wave on a high. This is not a new thing, but here's what they say. Prices did not fall in September, but there were signs of a slowdown even before the second wave lockdown. Now that we're kind of a week and a half into October, we're getting a better picture of what the stats had to say that came out in September. And there's actually a really juicy fact in here that I don't want you guys to miss. We're going to get there in a second. The second wave of COVID-19 pandemic will likely bring Toronto real estate transactions to a screeching halt as the province brings in, quote, modified lockdown measures, because they're not the same, to Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa. OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, and the TREB, Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, are calling on realtors to scrap open houses. I don't know who does those, but if you are, stop it. Stop it, says Lisa Patel, TREB's president. Probably with friendlier words than that. You stop it. While the average price is up, there were signs of cooling in the Toronto real estate market in September. I thought I actually created a very clickbaity title on the last one. No one seemed to pick that up. No one liked it. That we were seasonally down because that's kind of how TREB sold it. But not every particular segment of our market did well. And this is the juicy. Get ready. Loosen your, loosen those belts, folks. Prices for semi-detached and detached homes in the city have been taking a dip since June and July, respectively. Did you know that? This is talking specific to Toronto, guys. The average price for a detached house in the city of Toronto in September was $1,487,000. So under that 1.5 average we talked about in the past. That's down, funny enough, from July 3.5%, which was at a high of 1.541. The average price for a semi in September was $1,166,000, which is actually down 9%. 9% since June. So that was a real bump, right? We have definitely seen depending on what segment you're in, we've seen some cooling happening in the market, specifically in the city. And they say here that it was actually townhomes and condos that kind of bumped the city of Toronto up a little bit this past month. But of course, in the 905, it's a very different story, and all property types are up. Looking specific at condos, they say Bloomberg News reports that condos in the downtown area flooded the market with a reported 215% listing increase year over year. We've talked about that before as well. But listen to these numbers just to put it into perspective. According to TREP, there were 4,700 some odd new condo listings added to the Toronto market. 4,700 in September, but only 1,550 sales. Put that into perspective. The downtown area alone had under 1,500 new listings, let alone the entire city of Toronto's rental market. The trend will likely get worse during the second wave of the pandemic. That's what they say. The opinion's up to you, which will dramatically limit transactions. COVID-19 exacerbated a growing trend with rental listings outstripping transactions. The downward pressure on rentals could drag down sales prices, they say. Is that going to happen again? I don't know. Guys. This is the fun part of what we do. We're really trying to anticipate what comes next. Do we see the exact same thing of a first wave? I mean, that would be predictable and exciting and a very great way to make money. But the fact that it could not be the same, that's kind of more fun. Dwindling condo sales could potentially trigger a market correction. So I thought I'd share a few other points to kind of go alongside this article as we try and just for the very beginning time start to process what comes next. We're entering stage 2. A modified stage 2, but what comes next? Zealand on Twitter. I love this because this is something to keep in mind on the rental space. You've heard me say it over and again. The rental market, we reached a bit of a plateau because we did. We actually did. Well, I'm eating my words a little bit now because there was a plateau. There really was. But now there seems to be an increase in rental units again. It's like a new surge that's happening in the rental space. Guarantee you haven't heard this anywhere else. Welcome to the show. Weekly update for GTA rental market. This is what they say. Significant WOW increase. What is WOW? Wow. It's a wow increase. Week on week. That's what it is. You're getting wowed in here. Inventory is expected to grow between September to December, but the pace is clearly exceeding historical norms. Listen to this, guys. Since October 1st, very real info. We're not even 2 weeks into this. October 1st inventory in the GTA. Rentals are up. Rental inventory is up 824 rentals. To put this into comparison, the resale market is down 17%. Growth in the condo space, they say, right? There was a bit of growth in condo, but overall resale is down. Well, this chart they have here, man, it's got me wondering because we legitimately were in a plateau. Looked like we were in a plateau going into September. And then there was kind of another plateau that happened in the end of October. And now it seems to be going up again. It's almost like it looks not like staircase, but kind of. It kind of does. So all this to say, there is a very real possibility you could see rent rates continue to go down, which that to me was one of the things that we had going for us. At least rental rates aren't going down anymore, but we will see. We will see. This is a good leading indicator. If these rent rates go up, or sorry, if these rental units, the number of rental units go up, this could translate into, of course, prices coming down. And then the $1 million question is it clearly has overflowed, and many people have made this connection into the condo space. Could that overflow further into the freehold space? And then all these young people are getting COVID again. So I thought, you know what? Let's go back. Let's look at some of the reasons that we made it through COVID the first time, because that's really going to dictate if we're going to have everything the same, our response needs to be just as strong. If in fact the cases go up more, maybe the response needs to be more. Well, let's look at the few things that I could think of as to why we made it through COVID in the first place. And let's ask ourselves as investors, are we going to have the same response? Number one, rental evictions freeze. The rental evictions freeze, as much as we all kind of hate it, because a lot of us listening here are landlords, it really left you guys high and dry, right? But it did help the tenants. I mean, it naturally kept tenants in their home. A lot of them took advantage of it, but then at least we didn't have an exodus, which you would hope wouldn't mess too much with the rental space. That was the whole point. And think of the problems we got in the rental space now. Imagine if you had huge evictions immediately. I know we're going to get evictions later. Those will come later. But immediate evictions would have caused a huge conundrum. Number two, you homeowners, you landlords out there, you did get a break, right? You got the opportunity to apply for the mortgage deferrals. This was 6 months, and many people took advantage of this. I think a lot of people overshot their thinking that the mortgage deferrals was a reason for a problem, but it did help. Absolutely, it helped. Are we going to see that again? Number 3, CERB and income replacement. Not only did CERB deal with the lost income, it overshot it. We've seen that. And that very much helped our banking sector. And number 4, the big unknown here, outside of government spending, the thing we can't fully control because it's just like a machine, is the supply and the demand. The supply and demand balance was found very quickly in the first wave of COVID. If you think about it, we had huge drops, but it was immediate that people jumped back in. Not only did pretty much people realized, I'm not going to sell my house at a discount, I'm going to take it off the market. And that was what got that engine turning again. The demand was still there, picked it up and took off. Well, are we going to see that same balance in supply and demand? Are going to people, because we're entering the winter months, are going to say, well, I don't really care all that much. You know, I don't need to buy something. I already did my move. I got my COVID discount, whatever that looks like. I already got my cottage. A lot of people didn't. And what else am I missing, guys? If I miss anything, I'll put them in the comments. Let us know. But we've jumped now to stage 2 pretty much overnight. Like, this really did happen overnight. And for the same reason that I didn't season my Thanksgiving turkey this year. There was no time. There simply was no time. All right, we're going to move along. I want to talk a little bit about interest rates, if I may. This is a kind of an ongoing question that we've had for some time. Is it possible? First of all, is it possible? It's very unlikely. But this conversation of negative interest rates is a very real one in other countries around the world. So let's listen to what, if we're going to talk doom and gloom, why not visit our friends at Better Dwelling? Negative interest rates aren't good for real estate. They're actually really bad. Okay, tell us about that. They say this. I love this little kind of caption here. Actually, it's not a caption. I'm making it a caption. It's in the middle of their article, but they say this. More simply put, it's a penalty for saving. Interesting. The bank is charged to store money. By charging banks, central banks hope to encourage lending more freely, and it means households that deposit money may receive less than they deposited. In other words, as my caption reads, more simply put, it's a penalty for saving. The whole reason to bring negative interest rates in is you're trying to bring that number down. You want people to spend. And not only do we want to encourage spending with negative interest rates, we want to penalize non-spending, right? That's exactly what's happening here. So negative interest rates are reserved, they say, for disastrous economies. For negative interest rates to be rolled out, the economy needs to fall into total disrepair. People need to be hoarding money and not spending it. Is that what's happening now? No, maybe, kind of. As I'm thinking through it, right? A lot of people are saving money, which is actually a really good thing, but apparently it's not. And so we got to encourage them to spend. Usually this type of environment is accompanied by a very weak labor market, which our labor market is coming back, but it's relatively weak. And this isn't the time you see bidding wars and wage gains. Mortgage rates, though, they say, are unlikely to turn negative. And this is an important fact, guys. You think, oh, interest rates are going down. I can get money on my house. Sweet. That's you're gonna have to add an extra level. you're literally flipping. It's like you've got, because when we're calculating the value of real estate, we've got several lines, right? We got, this is how much equity I'm gonna gain. This is how much cash flow I'm gonna gain. And then that's really it. And then we've got the expenses. Well, the mortgage expense, you would literally jump sides to revenue. Is that how that works? Well, not really. Because mortgage rates are unlikely to turn negative, even if interest rates are negative. There's a good chance, actually. This is a very interesting point, that mortgage rates don't fall lower than they do today. They could actually go up. They could go up. They could go up. Think of all the dropping in interest rate we experienced at the beginning of this year, which was a response, the Bank of Canada's response to COVID. Yet, we did not see mortgage rates drop at the same pace. They've later dropped. They dropped more recently. In fact, I was just talking, we were talking to Scotia, and I think their rates right now on a 5-year fix is 1.79 or 1.89, something like that. They've dropped below. Even the banks are below 2% now. Not then, now. And all of this is tied to risk. It's tied to risk. So it is, in some ways, with negative interest rate as part of this conversation, it is a very legitimate prediction. If we have a second wave, which we do, if this leads to further risk for the lenders, we could see rates go up. We could see them go up. And what would be the response to that? We bring our interest rates further, or we start digging ourselves into negative territory? I don't know. But just because you've seen interest rates come down during this wave of COVID does not mean interest rates will stay this low. And in some ways, they could go back up. And the reason for this isn't the Bank of Canada. It's the risk that these mortgage companies are not wanting. It's like, I don't want your business. Take that somewhere else. Mortgage rates are based on the consumer prime rates. They're at least 2% higher than the overnight rate, that overnight rate being the one that's negative. For a shot at negative mortgage rates, you'd need a deeply negative overnight rate. You'd need to come down to that 2%. As rates drop, there's fewer incentives to lend, which often leads to higher mortgage rates, and higher mortgage rates means less lending. Even with deeply negative rates, research shows banks stop lowering rates at a certain point. It's almost like bank shareholders want to make money or something. Right? Like, it's like, I'm not doing this anymore. Screw this. I'm leaving. Supply and demand says price goes up. Think of these things, guys. Just because it's negative doesn't mean that this trend of bringing interest rates down is going to continue into negative territory. Not necessarily. Once again, negative interest rates are designed to stop people from saving money. The whole purpose is to lower any incentives to save money and spur consumer spending. Actually, the purpose is to penalize anyone from trying to save. Bad households. I didn't say that. That's in the article. Bad households trying to save. Those savings for a down payment are incentivized to invest in stocks, they say. And then, of course, you see pushing up stock prices and these market returns. They say, well, why, if I got money in this asset class, why invest in that one? Not really a strong argument, but okay, fine. You're making money in the stock market, so you refuse to invest in real estate. But let's be honest, with the amount of inflation right now, do you want to be in stocks or do you want to be in a hard fixed asset like that house? Canada is a lot further away from negative nominal rates than some think. For deeply negative rates, we would need to see this recession go into a further recession. While this recession isn't great, it's also not as bad as it should have been. And we know the reasons. We talked about them earlier in the show. Now, one of the things that I thought that they mentioned here, I thought was a great point that I have not heard of, that I think you guys will, like, if I'm learning, you're learning. That's how we do this, right? While Canada's condo, quote, insurance crisis should make investors nervous. This whole idea of condo coverage crisis. The trend of higher rates is expected to persist in the future. Rising insurance premiums on your condo. Okay. The rising premiums translate into higher maintenance fees, lowering the attractiveness to investors. So they say this, there's a supply and demand issue in the insurance world. So if you got a condo, you're like, what's going to happen to my insurance premiums? They're going to go up. It kind of makes sense. And they explain it very clearly here. Yes, it's better dwelling. Yes, they're a little biased, but sometimes they got a point. Well, here's one. Canada's construction boom has increased the number of condo apartments rapidly. This has led to a serious increase in demand for insurance coverage because there's more people needing insurance coverage. There's also a near record amount of completions, which is further pushing that demand. And this surge in demand was already expected to place a strain on the existing market. However, many companies have decided to exit this segment of insurance. This has led to less competition at a period of surging demand. Supply and demand says price goes up, right? Typically, rising demand for a product invites more players into the game. You'd think premiums are going up. Why wouldn't you come? That's kind of how business would work. Well, not this time. Due to rising replacement values and more claims, the market is now less attractive. Fewer insurers want to deal with condos when other segments are more profitable. Times are changing. Moments like these, I wish I could go back to the good old days, instead of socially distanced Thanksgiving. I'm talking traditional, where you invite the neighbors to dinner, you murder them, and you take their land. I'm not a killer. I just like funny jokes, and that's a funny one. That is as traditional as it can get, folks. All right, let's do some hot topics before we get into probably my favorite topic of the day with the landlord-tenant conflict. I love the solution, and I'm not hearing it anywhere else, so we're going to have some fun. But before we go there, some hot topics for you folks. Number one, Canadian dollar supercharged by jobs data posts 1 month high. Yes, negative interest rates could mean crushing our dollar, yet in the midst of all of this, our dollar is doing very well. And the reason is Canada added 378,200 jobs in September after an increase of 246,000 in the previous month. They say handily beating analyst expectations. Our jobs are coming back. They're coming back, right? Driven by domestic data showing a faster pace of jobs gain and rising hopes of a U.S. stimulus that boosted Wall Street. They're trying to boost the states, and we're getting the benefit of that. Our dollar is worth more. Haha, you need to spend more. Between CERB and this bounce back in jobs, Canadians are dancing to the bank this fall, standing on the dinner table this Thanksgiving like Miley Cyrus. Look, Mom, I'm doing the twerky. All right, next hot topic. Look for U.S. buyers to snap up more Vancouver homes. I know, this is Toronto. Why are you looking at Vancouver? The point still stands. Every time there's a U.S. election, it says it seems Americans threaten to move to Canada. And we saw this. We talked about this a couple podcasts back. Google searches for, quote, how to apply for Canadian citizenship. And a lot of them, they're so quick to say it, they're calling us Canada. C-A-N-D-A. How to move to Canada. Well, they asked a licensed partner at Engel and Volkers Vancouver, Andrew Karos. He's a partner there. He thinks this time really could be different, and that Vancouver residential real estate, or to replace that, Canadian residential real estate, will benefit from motivated U.S. buyers. It's not just COVID, the realtor says. It's the election. It's civil unrest right now, something that nobody's experienced down there. He says this, very educated, smart people all over the world are looking for different places to live. If we looked at it as an opportunity to grow our country and to welcome people in and really grow and build a little bit more, it could really help the economy. And let me ask you guys a question. Are we hesitant to invite people into our country? Because I don't feel that at all. So we have open door policy outside of COVID, but from a primary principal residence or as a permanent resident perspective, we are arms open. Come on in. Come on in. And this is why we've seen such growth in the tech sector. You got people from Silicon Valley running up to Toronto. Toronto is a hot spot. Not to mention your dollar goes so much further up here. That is for now. And so with this as well, I want to kind of talk a little bit as a hot topic about mortgage deferrals. And this conversation on mortgage deferral, this mortgage deferral cliff was so loud and overplayed. Well, it was a thing. And in some provinces, it is a thing. But, and so the question is there still people on mortgage deferrals? Well, Steve Saretsky put out a Twitter post. I think it's great. The highest one I see on this list is Alberta at 18.9%. These are CMHC insured mortgages at the end of August. So almost 20% in Alberta are still on mortgage deferrals. Saskatchewan is at 14%, Newfoundland at 13%. We go all the way down the list, and Toronto is closer to the bottom side with 8.9% on deferrals. So I think people over-expected mortgage deferrals to break our real estate market. And in some provinces, it is still quite high. But after doing the math for Ontario and dividing the circumference of a pumpkin by the diameter, we got ourselves a delicious pumpkin pie. And if you want a slice of those pumpkin pies, make sure you get on our investor list because we send out power of sale deals. All right, so moving along. Next hot topic. Look this up yourself if you want. There's a billboard that gave some flack in Etobicoke with a couple of white dudes doing some karate chops. And it says COVID, and they say they're the ninjas, and they're pretty much like got the word COVID crossed out, and they're getting accused of these two turkeys. They think they should go to jail because foul play. Lock them up. They're so disrespectful. All right. Next topic. Toronto's homeowners could face displacement due to Ontario line construction. Very interesting point. Something that's often forget. Yes, bring on the transit. Transit is good. Ontario line, huge project, going to do some amazing things that we've talked about on the show. But a number of East York homeowners recently received letters from Metrolinx informing them their property, quote, will be needed to accommodate construction of the project, which is proposed to run between Ontario Place and Ontario Science Centre. This is also called expropriation, but PACCT said, and I don't know who that is, probably some kind of representation group based on what they're saying. This is not a notice of expropriation, but it's possibly worse than that. Letting a homeowner know that their house is being targeted for expropriation is a huge amount of uncertainty and stress put on the residents. They can't sell. They can't move. They know a clock is ticking. I'm taking it is because they got the letter and deal with it, fam. And I feel bad for these guys, but at the end of the day, it's for the greater good, right? This is what democracy is all about. Step on the few and karate chop the racists. All right. If you work primarily from home, your trips to the office could be tax deductible. Another interesting point that, so we already kind of know, because I think you've probably seen articles of people saying if you work from home, your home office is now tax deductible. You can expense that, which is a beautiful thing. As a self-employed person, I'll tell you, this is the beauty of working for yourself, guys. Those of you caught in a 9 to 5, you're getting a little sliver of it, a little taste of the pie. But We all know you can write off your office expense, which includes a lot of things, utilities, you know, your interest on your mortgage, like a lot of stuff. That whole room has a square footage. It gets deducted by that amount. But I saw this article I thought was great too. If you work from home and let's say you have to drive to that once office, but it's not really a place you work all the time. They say this, there was a recent court case that sides with a beauty company employee who had to drive from her home office in Pickering to the head office in Oakville. So now not only can you deduct your home office, which is a huge win, but now you can also deduct the trip to the office that was your office. And so we're all getting deductions for everybody. But one thing I want to note here, yes, it's a beautiful thing, especially if you're in a high income bracket, but recognize for those of you who are just kind of starting in the real estate investment game, yes, it lowers your income, but it also will ultimately lower what you qualify for when you go to purchase or use money for your mortgage. They're going to look at your income. Now, you've got the beauty of saying I'm still a full-time employee. There's still that stability. But if your income rate comes down because of deductions, that could be a deal breaker when you're applying for a mortgage. Not to say don't take the deductions. I'm just saying be aware of it. I've had real estate deals where I purchase a property in my own name and I've thought, you know what, I'm just going to pay myself a commission because I want to kind of pad up that amount. I want to make sure that I'm collecting that income because that's going to help me because I plan on making a move for a real estate deal down the road. Okay, we're going to do one more hot topic. I know we got a lot of hot topics today. We really do. This one says, new federal COVID-19 rent relief subsidy allows businesses to directly apply. All of this to say, we were talking about how the Canadian Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program was going to be replaced. Well, it has. There was an announcement made on Friday, so we can tie that up in a pretty bow. The announcement of the new program comes as the federal government allowed the CECRA to lapse at the end of September, and the new program is set to be available until, listen to this, guys, June 2021. June 2021. It's available to small and medium-sized businesses and will offer a sliding scale of support. Do you know what that means? That tells me that from a federal perspective, we plan on being like this. Businesses are going to be struggling until at least June 2021. And then, so the question is, what comes next with the spending? And this article reads, as the second wave of COVID-19 has hit many parts of Canada, the federal government has been back in spending mode. During the Liberal government's September 23 throne speech, promises were made to extend and expand numerous COVID relief efforts, including the CEWS, Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, to summer of 2021. Again, summer of 2021. And last week, we saw $600 million committed to this Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, which helps businesses as well, the RRF. Woo! So with COVID here, with stage 2 here in a lot of provinces and growing, it is time, folks, to ramp up on more federal spending. This is what I'm hearing. Is that what you're hearing? I mean, we managed to eat our way through $1 million. Why not go for seconds? Oh my gourd. Oh my, I say oh my gourd, but it's oh my gourd. Do you guys put gourds on your front porch? I know we do. We got pumpkins and gourds, but what's a gourd? Oh my gourd, I ate so much. Going for seconds here. Why not go for 2, right? 2's better than 1. The tenant and landlord tension has changed the relationship, guys. You know, as we segue into our last topic, this is a great one. This is so good. If you're a landlord or a tenant, you definitely want to hear this. If you're not, this is the part where you cut, you hit the subscribe button, you catch your next video. But for those of you who are landlords, you're investors or considering being investors, this is a huge deal. This should have way more news, okay? With the amount of tension we've experienced in the landlord and tenant segment, it's been crazy because tenants have been pretty much puking all over landlords, but not with money. They're just puking with, I don't know, picket signs. But what we did see come out of that is very widely known as Bill 184, which was a very good thing despite the propaganda. It removed a lot of pressures off the landlord-tenant board, right? And it also, surprisingly, I'm already seeing this come up in my business with clients. It has given tenants more strength and protection from very shady landlords. And I say very shady, but these are low-hanging fruits that have been completely covered over by Bill 184. Well, maybe the government isn't the only platform that's able to save the day and revive the relationship that landlords and tenants once had. According to the financialpost.com, listen to this article. Rent can now count toward your credit score for better or worse. What? A new service gives landlords new sticks and carrots to simply be paid on time. we are going to have people on very opposing views. This is a great controversial conversation, and I am not slow to give my perspective. So you're going to know it by the end of this talk. Until now, credit scores have only acted as a roadblock in the renting process. A test would be tenants have to pass in order to convince landlords they're trustworthy. So to this point, your credit score is like, give me your Equifax report. Let me see that you're not, let me see your number. Show me yours, and you ain't seeing mine, right? A new initiative from the Toronto-based Landlord Credit Bureau, the LCB, is promising to make renting an essential part of building up your credit score. Here's the sell. We're going to allow you to, you can talk to your landlord and we can get your properly paid rent on your credit score. If you're paying your rent, beautiful, fantastic. While the for-profit, LCB, for-profit is key, says it wants to reward tenants who always pay on time, it also wants to create, quote, real consequences for people who don't. Who's happy, who's sad? People who pay are happy. People who don't pay are sad. What side of the table are you on? Right? We should be giving credit to consumers for paying their rent on time. This is the sell. To do so, the LCB has inked a deal. This isn't just a talk. They inked a deal. Get inked, baby, with Equifax, one of Canada's two main credit bureaus, the biggest. Landlords can now report their tenants' payments or non-payments to the LCB, which will go to Equifax and end up on their credit report. They can do it now. It's available in all provinces except Quebec. So why didn't you hear about it if you're a landlord? I don't know. Why is this not bigger news? The new process will be particularly beneficial for new to credit and new to Canada consumers who tend to have thin credit files and struggle to build their credit ratings. This is a great point. You're right. Like, why not take advantage? If I was a tenant, I'd like to know if I'm making those payments. It's great because you think, oh, well, they're just going to squash the little guy because they're going to submit it to Equifax, or in this case, they're going to send it to Equifax. But the reality is, if you were dealing with a large landlord, that was already the case, guys. It was already the case. You just send it to a collections agency. You don't pay the collections agency. That goes on your credit. It just doesn't come up directly from the landlord in this relationship. They say the new process, if you're interested, you can ask your current landlord, this is you tenants or landlords, whether it would be possible for them to sign up and report your payments. And for other tenants, their participation may not be strictly voluntary. The LCB, which was originally founded as an online network for landlords and property managers, oh, well, then it can't be good. I mean, it comes from landlords and property managers. Well, they're just trying to screw the little guy here. Says it aims to provide both, quote, carrots and sticks to ensure landlords get paid on time. Now, given that this is on the hush-hush still, but it'll come around. Just you wait until tenant advocacy groups get wind of this. I think the reason they're not yelling about it is because they don't want it in the news. I don't want anyone to talk about this. But as soon as it hits the airwaves and a lot of landlords begin doing it, maybe you guys here, recognizing this is an opportunity to really make sure your tenant does a good job. Yeah, I know you got your Equifax report and you've rented a few places and you don't have anything there that talks about it, but I'll tell you what, I have a partnership with Equifax where I'm going to report all your good payments and it's going to help you with qualifying for a property on the other end. You're welcome. 90+% of the records we get are positive in nature, so overwhelmingly, landlords use this to reward tenants. Now, does the reporting work? Couple disclaimers. Number one, rent payments cannot be relied upon exclusively as a means to build credit. So don't think, oh, I'm a renter and therefore I'm going to all of a sudden be able to build my credit to purchase a house. That's not enough. A history with different types of payments, including credit cards, is still an essential component, which is also an argument as to why it's a good thing, because you're adding one more layer of building that credit. This is a good thing. It really is, if you're going to make your payment. Rent payments won't impact all of your credit scores. Each Canadian has multiple credit scores that are accessible by different lenders. For example, TransUnion. You got Equifax and TransUnion. The partnership is just with Equifax right now. So what that tells me is, landlords, I would encourage you to use Equifax as the platform where you run these credits, and I would encourage you guys to look into maybe getting connected, especially if you're a small guy or girl. You're a small investor and you want to make sure that you have a platform where they didn't make their payments and they're going to feel it. I believe it's a good thing. Reward the good tenants, and finally a platform to catch those pesky professional tenants, because we haven't had a way to do that. And right now, large property managers are already doing this, guys. It's just a win for small scale investors. Great stuff. I hope you guys had some fun. Happy Thanksgiving, friends. Remember, be extra careful on the roads this weekend. A lot of men will be drinking and getting their wives to drive home. And a special thank you to many of you who listen to my bad Thanksgiving jokes all along the way. Some people, they give me flack, and this is how we do our morning podcast, so deal with it, right? Can't quit cold turkey now. I'll see you guys next time. Take care and keep it real.